أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين أحمده واستعينه وأؤمن به وأتوكل عليه وأصلي وأسلم على خاتم الأنبياء وأفضل السفراء حبيب الله العالمين أبي القاسم المصطفى محمد وعلى أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين. For these discussions, which is on Islam al-Muslimin, Syed Murid Naqawi, he wanted me to speak in English. So I hope that the people present and the people watching understand it in English, because if not, then there's not that much of a benefit from it. But inshallah, that's not a problem. For our discussions in the month of Ramadan, I would like to focus mostly on verses of the Quran in relation to some of our beliefs. And before I go into that discussion, I want to elaborate a bit on the background of that. Why is it important to discuss our beliefs more than we already have and more than we already know? And why is it important to get it from the Quran? So, when we come to Islam, we see that roughly our scholars have divided the religion into three different parts. The first is the belief system, what we call usul al-din. So we say that we believe in the one God, we believe that God is just, we say that God has sent prophets, so there's a relation. I'll elaborate on some of them afterwards, inshallah. There's a relation, and also the Imams, and also there's a day of judgment. There's a day where we have to answer for all our deeds, good deeds, bad deeds. Also, we have something called ahkam. So that's the practical aspect of the religion. So we have the prayers, fast, which we are doing now in the month of Ramadan. We have the homs, zakat, jihad. We have amr bil ma'ruf, nahy al-munkar, tawalli, tabarri, and so on and so forth. So that's the practical aspect of Islam, some rules that we have to obey, some things that we have to do, some things that we should not do. Also, of course, in between those two, we have some things that are good to do, some things that are good not to do. And then we have a third aspect, which is what we call akhlaq, which normally we translate as ethics. And the thing is that normally when we speak about akhlaq, we think about manners, which is in Arabic called adab. So there's a difference between adab and akhlaq, and that's an important point. Of course, adab is a part of akhlaq, so it's not two different things, but it's a part of one another. So adab is a part of akhlaq. Let's say 20% of akhlaq is adab. Manners is 20% of ethics. But what's the rest of ethics? What's the rest of it? The thing that the Prophet has said that he came to perfect the ethics. So we reach makarim al-akhlaq, the perfect ethics. So that's the reason for the Prophet to come to us and for the message to come to us. That's the reason for it. For us to reach the perfect ethics. So it's important to know there's a difference between manners and ethics. Ethics is basically the personal states that a nafs can be in. Let's say, for instance, a person is patient, or a person is the opposite, is impatient. Or for instance, a person is thankful, or a person is not thankful, ungrateful. Or for instance, a person thinks bad about others, just until he sees something, he thinks that's definitely because of something which is bad. Or somebody thinks good about other people, so he sees something that on the surface looks bad, But he thinks maybe there's a reason for it. Maybe I don't know the reason. But maybe there's a reason. So I don't want to think bad about the person. Because maybe he has a reason that I don't know. So that's basic, some of the things that we speak about in akhlaq. So the point is that we have these three basic aspects of religion. We have the faith, we have the practical aspects, some things that we have to do, some things that we should not do, and then we have the ethics, which are in reality not necessarily actions, but more what drive us to the actions. So for instance, it could be that I do my prayers, but I do it for riyah, to show other people. So on the surface, I'm doing prayer, I'm doing salah, but in reality I'm not. Obviously that's the worst case scenario. But still there's other cases. Let's say for instance I'm praying and I'm just benefiting to this level. Why? Because my state of mind is to this level. So I can reach this level if I'm on this level myself. So I have to develop, I have to see the world in another way. I have to develop my ways of thought so I can reach perfection, also in practice. If we look at the morning prayer, for instance, what's the difference between my morning prayer and the Prophet ﷺ? On the surface it's the same. On the surface it's the same. We both do 2 rak'ah. We both say the same thing, more or less. So what's the difference? The difference is that I'm in one state of mind, the Prophet ﷺ is in another state of mind. When he does something, he does it because of something else. Maybe you've heard of the thing when we say that we do something for God, or we do something for Imam Hussain, maybe you've heard that. And also we have the narration, for instance, in Nahj al-Balagha, where Imam Ali says that he worships Allah because Allah is worthy of being worshipped, not because he's looking for paradise or fears hell. Sometimes, unfortunately, some people are explaining this narration in a very limited way. So they say that what Imam Ali says is the best thing and the others are bad. And the reality is that it's not like that. And I'll tell you why. Because before we reach the state that Imam Ali is speaking about, we should look at ourselves. Right now, most of us are doing it because of this world, God and this world. So, for instance, why are you praying? Because God told us to. Okay, so what would make you pray in a better way, in a more effective way, in a more concentrated way, if you knew that it had an effect in this world? So, for instance, when you hear that the night prayer, Salatul Layl, it gives you more rizq, then you get motivated. Why? Because it has an effect in this world. It's not because you're not doing it for God. You do it for God. But you do it for God and you want this world too. Okay? That's not a bad thing in and of itself, but we just have to realize where we are. So that's the first level. That we worship Allah, we worship God, we do it because God said so. God told us to pray, God told us to pray night prayers, God told us to fast. But we also want an effect in this world. That's the first thing. The second state is that we do it because God told us to, but we also want barzakh, or even better, the afterlife. Paradise, and we want to stay away from hell. It sounds easy and it sounds like what most of us would say that we would like to have. But the reality is that when somebody really means it, it means the following. That if somebody really worshipped Allah because he wanted paradise, because he doesn't want to go to hell, it means that even if he saw paradise in reality, even if he saw hell in reality, he wouldn't change. So that's a very, very high state. If you have, I don't know in other languages, but I know in Persian we say Cheshma Barzakhi. Cheshma Barzakhi means that you see Barzakh in this world. Obviously you see the same thing. You see the same, like it's the same table, it's the same people. So what does it mean that you have Cheshma Barzakhi? It means that you see the real consequences that you would see in the afterlife in this world. So in other words, it means that this person, he sees paradise, he sees hell in this world. So in other words again, if he saw the real paradise, if he saw the real hell, he wouldn't change, because he knew it from already. He knew it on forehand. So that's the state that Imam Ali alayhi salam says that he's not praying God for. Notice this? This is a very high state. A very high state. Most of us haven't reached that state. Imam Ali alayhi salam says that he's not worshipping because of that. He's worshipping because God is worthy of being worshipped. So what does that mean? It means that even if God told you to pray, and you knew 100% you would go to hell if you prayed, you would still do it. SubhanAllah. If God told us not to take, if God told us to, let's say for instance somebody comes to you and gives you some extra money under the table, 1 million for instance, then you will be in doubt, should I take the 1 million, should I take the 1 million? Then God tells you, you will go to paradise if you do it. I don't want you to do it, but you will go to paradise if you do it. Then who wouldn't do it? Who wouldn't do it? But Imam Ali alayhi salam, he wouldn't do it, because God doesn't want him to do it. That's the state that Imam Ali alayhi salam is speaking about. So we said that all of these states we do it for God, but we do it for God plus this world, or for God plus the next world, or for God Himself. So that's different states. And all of that is related to akhlaq. So akhlaq is extremely important. It's not something, unfortunately, sometimes people speak about akhlaq as it's something that's extra. If you have extra time, if you don't have anything else to do, then you can work a bit on yourself. No, it's very important, because if you do whatever you're doing in this state of mind or in this state of mind, then there's a world of difference between those. World of difference. That's why, if you know one of our late scholars, Ayatollah Syed was one of our great warafah. He died in the mid-90s in Qom. Sometimes he was asked, people they get together, let's say for instance they want to cure somebody. They said that we do 1,000 salawat for instance, or we do 10,000 salawat, we do 100,000 salawat for instance. Then they would ask him, how many should we do? He said 1. If you do 1 real salawat, then it's enough. So the point is that it's good to do a certain number. Like let's say in some narrations said that you should do istighfar 70 times. So obviously there's a point of doing it. I'm not saying that we shouldn't. But the point is that in of itself, quality is more important than quantity. So we need to strengthen the quality. Now, I don't want to take too much of your time, but just to sum up the discussion, inshallah, we'll continue tomorrow. So the point is that how can we strengthen our ethics so we can reach a point that we will be able to do the same actions, more or less, but with another, it will have another worth, it will be worth a whole lot more because of that specific ethics and because of that depth that you have. So inshallah, that's what we're going to continue to speak about tomorrow, inshallah. May Allah bless our scholars and give them a long life, and may Allah help all the sick and all those who are in need, and inshallah help us to use this month of Ramadan to get closer to Him. Salawat on Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد.
دوم علم او باید علم لدنی و معصوم باشه که در مقابل هر خواسته انسان، در مقابل هر سؤال انسان، این اولوالامر و این امام باید پاسخگو باشه. اینه که حضرت مولانا امیرالمؤمنین رضی الله عنه فرموده که سلونی قبل ان تفقدونی، از من سوال کنید قبل از اینکه من از دنیا برم، قبل از اینکه من دیگه نداشته باشید. هر آنچه بخواید سوال کنید. اینش از آسمان سوال کنید، از زمین سوال کنید، از هر علمی که شما میخواید سوال کنید و جواب بده به شما. پس علم او رو باید علم لدنی باشه که در مقابل هر نیاز بشر پاسخگو باشه، مثل رسول الله. و سومین شاخصه و خصوصیات اولوالامر اینه که اونا اول منصوب از جانب خداوند متعال بودن، دوم علم اونا علم لدنی بود، سوم اونا باید معصوم باشن. معصوم یعنی عاری از گناه. اونا در فکر گناه هم نباید باشن. چی برسه که خودشون گناهکار باشن، چون این هم گرفته شده از متن قرآن مجید هست. در قرآن مجید حضرت ابراهیم خلیل از خداوند متعال درخواست کرد که خداوند حالا که من رو به مقام امامت رسوندی، چون امامت حضرت ابراهیم خلیل از جانب خداوند متعال بود. در آیه 124 سوره ملک بقره ما شما این آیه رو می‌خونیم که حضرت ابراهیم خلیل زمانی که از جانب خداوند متعال منسوب به امامت شد، این خداوند او رو منسوب ساخت. انی جاعلک للناس اماما، این من خدا توی ابراهیم رو جعل میکنم، این شما رو قرار میدم، من شما رو مقرر میکنم. انی جاعلک للناس اماما. حضرت ابراهیم خلیل او وقت سوال میکنه که و قال من ذریتی، خدای فرزندان من هم امام معصوم میشن، مثل من امام میشن، اونها رو هم امام مردم میسازید. در جواب خداوند فرماید که قال لا ینال عهد الظالمین، این امامت به ظالم و به گناهکار داده نمیشه. این عهد خداست. مقام امامت مقام چیزی کسی نیست که مثلا هر کسی مثلا به ادعا کنه که من خلیفه رسول الله هستم. یزید هم ادعا کنه که من خلیفه رسول الله هستم، معاویه هم ادعا کنه که من خلیفه رسول الله هستم. با شخصی که فکر او غلطه، ذهن او غلطه، راه او غلطه، عمل او غلطه، آیا اطاعت او رو خدا بر ما واجب میسازه؟ العیاذ بالله. هرگز این ظلمیه که خداوند من مثلا اطاعت یزید رو بر من واجب بکنه. من از یزید شرابخوار، از یزید که آدم کشه، قاتل امام معصوم هست، مثلا او رو به عنوان امام خود بدونم، به خلیفه رسول الله بدونم. این ظلم عظیمه. العیاذ بالله. بنابراین خداوند متعال هیچ وقت میگه فرمود به حضرت ابراهیم که امامت عهد منه و این عهد به شخص ظالم داده نمیشه. قال لا ینال عهد الظالمین، امامت عهد و این عهد به امامهای معصوم باید داده شود، نه به شخص ظالم، به شخص گناهکار و به شخصی که مثلا علم او علم لدنی نیست، جاهله. این جهل او بیشتر از فهم اوست. کسی که جهل او بیشتر از فهم اوست، آیا اطاعت او بر من واجب میتونه بشه؟ اگر چنین شخصی رو خداوند بر من اطاعت او رو واجب بکنه، پس اون راهی که انبیا رفتن راه اشتباه بوده. العیاذ بالله. چون انبیای الهی ما رو میگه اهدنا الصراط المستقیم، برای نیک ما رو هدایت میکنه، به صراط مستقیم هدایت میکنن. ولی شخص ظالم انسان رو به سوی خطوات شیطان دعوت میکنه. العیاذ بالله که یک شخص جانی و یک شخص جاهل در رأس حکومت قرار بگیره و مردم را به سوی خطوات شیطان حرکت بکنه و خداوند هم دستور بده که مثلا اطاعت این به شما واجبه. این اصلا با عقل جور در نمیاد. وحی جای خودش. بنابراین خداوند متعال فرمود در این آیه کریمه یا ایها الذین آمنوا اتقوا الله وابتغوا الیه الوسیله. اولا در این آیه کریمه سه تا حکم خداوند متعال بر مؤمنین اجرا کنند، به صورت امر می‌فرمایند. سه تا حکم را. حکم اول مورد ای خود مؤمنین مورد خطاب هست، اهل ایمان. یا ایها الذین آمنوا، حکم اول اتقوا الله. اتقوا الله یعنی تقوا داشته باشید، از گناه دوری کنید. از گناه دوری کنید، از شرک دوری کنید، از غیبت دوری کنید، از هر آن چیزی که حکم خداوند متعال بر نهی او هست از اون کار دوری کنید. اتقوا الله. بعد فرموده که وابتغوا الیه الوسیله، حکم خداونده. خداوند دستور میده که وسیله در برای وسیله پیدا کنید. برید تو وسیله پیدا کنید. وسیله چیست؟ وسیله آن چیزی هست که انسان را به خداوند نزدیک بکنه. هر آن چیزی که ما را به خدا نزدیک کنه میشه وسیله. میتونه ایمان خالص باشه، میتونه تقوا باشه، میتونه عمل خالصانه باشه، جهاد در راه خدا باشه، نماز باشه، روزه باشه، تلاوت قرآن مجید باشه. اینا همه میتونه وسیله باشه، وسیله تقرب الی الله. ولی مهمتر از اینها آن چیزی است که انسان را بکشونه به سوی این کار و اون امام‌های معصوم علیه السلام هست که دست ما رو به دست قرآن میده و راه درست رو بر ما نمایان میکنه. راه تقوا، راه رشد، راه فلاح، راه رستگاری رو بر ما نشون میده. بنابراین خداوند دستور داد که ابتغوا الیه الوسیله. این وسیله یک مصداق حقیقیش به اصطلاح اعمال صالح انسان هست، اعمال بندگی انسان هست، عبودیت انسان هست، مثل نماز و روزه و زکات و خمس و حج و جهاد و این فرایضی که در گردن ما هست. اینا همون وسیله تقرب الی الله. ولی مهمتر از اینها اون چیزی که ما رو به خدا نزدیک میکنه و قرب الی الله هست، اونا امام‌های معصومن که خداوند عصمت اونها رو تضمین کرده، علم اونها رو تضمین کرده و اونها رو توسط رسول الله برای ما معرفی کرده و گفتن که از این مسیر حرکت کنید که اطاعت اونها بر شما واجبه. الذین فرضنا طاعتهم و عرفتنا، ما را با معرفت اون نزدیک بساز که اون امام‌هایی که اطاعت رو بر ما فرض کردید. در همین آیه که یا ایها الذین آمنوا ابتغوا، بله، یا ایها الذین آمنوا اتقوا الله وابتغوا الیه الوسیله. و این وسیله میتونه که امام‌های معصوم علیه السلام باشه و ما دعای توسل را هم که میخونیم میگیم که فرض کنید یا رسول الله ما به تو توسل میکنیم، انی توسلت بکن و توجه و توسل الیک. ما به تو توجه میکنیم و به تو وسیله قرار میدیم، وسیله تقرب الی الله، چون خداوند دستور داده که مطیع امر رسول باش تا مطیع خدا باشی. اگر مطیع رسول الله بودی